Anywho, let's start this. Let's get into the builds. Greetings, everybody. We're back with a new DK build. How about that? Magicka DK this time. Took me a long time. We tested it. We played it. I got a fuck ton of footage, and goddamn, is it a nice build. I'm really happy with it. Let's get into it. So, if you look at the stats sheet here, 34k Magicka. That's a good amount. 26, almost 27k health. That's also pretty decent. And then, of course, almost 16k stamina. Not too shabby. Magicka recovery, not super high, but this goes up by quite a lot, actually, and I'll tell you why exactly in a bit. The spell damage, 2k unbuffed. It's not too shabby. If we buff up here, we get up to 2.5k. So let me think about it. Fully buffed, we should be sitting at, I don't want to lie, 3.8k, something like this, maybe. You'll see. It's a decent amount of damage. It's not meant to be a high damage build, but honestly, if you play it right, it does a decent amount of damage. It is also quite the robust build. If you want to look at the resistances here, 27k spell resistance, 22k physical resistance. It's not too shabby for a light armor build, I gotta say. And then, of course, a 3.5k crit resist. Can't go wrong with that. Also, the spell penetration, 11k. It's not bad. I'll tell you. We're using the Atro for our Mundus. Just a little bit of extra sustain. It doesn't hurt. We are a vampire. We're not really using any vampire skills. Stage 1 vampire is fine if you don't want to cure it. If you do want to cure it, sure, go ahead. You can do that. We're running the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. It's a good drink. You can, if you want, you can use the, what's it called? The Artaeum? No. Is it called the Artaeum? No. What's it called? The Clockwork Citrus Fillet. That's the one. You can use that one too if you want. Get a little extra health recovery, because since we're stage 1, we actually have a little bit of health recovery. So if you want to stack a little more into it, you can go for that. But it's, of course, more expensive, so keep that in mind. Okay, let's move on to the sets here. Okay, now comes the complicated part. We're running a lot of sets, so I have to apologize. If you want to do the build, you need a lot of sets, and they're not easy to get. So, well, some of them are, but not all of them. So let's get into it. Let's start with the monster set, Valkyria, a staple of any, well, dot build, I want to say. This is not like focused on dots, but since we're a DK, we have a lot of dots to our disposal, and Valkyria does a good job. It gives spell penetration now on the one piece. They changed it from health to spell pen, which really helps. Not only helps your overall damage, but of course the spell penetration will also make the Valkyria proc hit harder. So it's not bad. And why I like Valkyria is because you always hit people with it. Valkyria cannot miss. It's a meteor. It comes down. You can, of course, block it, but you can't dodge it. It's gonna hit somebody at some point. And this little bit of like guaranteed damage is really nice. It hits people for 3-4k. It's not like a crazy amount of damage, but it helps. It really helps. And it hits multiple people, so, if you're just fighting multiple people, drop the big Valkyria meteor in there, it definitely helps. So, on the body, we got the Buffer of the Swift set. It's a really good set. It doesn't offer a whole lot of, like, damage. You just got one Magicka bonus here, but the double armor and the 10% reduced damage from players, it's a really good option if you want to be in a light armor setup, but you want to be a little extra tanky. That's really nice. So I would say, it's a popular set, but it's not meta per se, which is kind of, I wonder why, because like people like it, and it does a good job. So, you know, I would expect more people to run it, but thankfully, not a whole lot of people are running it because it's, you know, like I said, it makes you pretty tanky, even though you are a light armor build, and you know that can be a little toxic. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is Willpower. Why do we have Willpower? Because, you know, we needed to fill the slots, and Willpower is not bad. The 1700 maximum Magicka is actually really good. Gives you a nice amount of extra damage, and that's all that it does basically. You know, it's all that it does. The next one is the Torque of Tonal Constancy. It's one of the new mythics. It's really strong. It's a really good one. A ton of sustain. Really, really nice. So when your stamina drops below, like both your resources, stamina or Magicka, you get 450 extra recovery for the other resource. You know, stamina drops below 50%, you get the Magicka recovery, and the other way around. And of course, when both your resource bars drop below 50, you get both, which is really, really good. So that's a lot of sustain just for like one piece. I love this a lot. Great mythic. Highly, like I can really recommend getting this. Not every mythic is good. You know, you got to be careful with some of them. They all look pretty OP, but they are not. But this one definitely is, so keep that in mind. The next set is the Potentate set. This is just for another 5% extra damage reduction from players, which, you know, pairs really well with the Buffer of the Swift here. That's 15% on top of the already pretty decent defensive values on this build. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then on the back bar, we got a Maelstrom Resto Staff. You can put something else here if you want, but I thought this kind of, you know, it makes sense. It makes sense because, you know, the way we set it up, we just need like a one-piece set that works well. And the Resto Staff is going to play into, you know, the sustain of this build a little bit more. So I thought this is a pretty good idea. If you want to run something else, you can, you know. In case you don't want to use a Resto Staff, maybe you could put, you know, a Master Destro Staff on, you know, and get the extra spell damage if you want. So that's something you can decide, but I think this thing makes sense. So yeah, so that's the sets. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets on this build. Amazing. Like I said, you know, I always do the impan on the small pieces here. We do infused on the big pieces, except this one I just didn't bother transmuting it. It was a sturdy, which makes sense for the build. We're blocking quite a lot, so the sturdy, definitely not bad. You can go for more sturdy if you want. I personally, you know, I was debating whether I should go a full sturdy or just 4 sturdy maybe. Yeah, I don't think it needs it, but if you want to be more of a like perma block kind of build, you know, put more sturdy on. It's up to you. And of course, we got the arcane jewelry here. This one is triune. It drops in triune, and I would highly suggest keeping the triune trait on it. It's not bad. It's really nice because you get the, you know, you get all the resources, and this pairs well with the tri-stat enchants that I always put on the big pieces. It just, you know, you get a nice, well-rounded amount of stats, and you know, that's pretty it's pretty good these days. Infused shields. We got a defending sword on the front bar. I only had defending on this sword. I was debating whether I should transmute it or not, and I decided to just keep it on for now. And quite honestly, I like it. I like it. It's not bad. Extra tankiness, I'll take it. You know, because this build was supposed to be pretty tanky, so I'm actually glad, and it works well. If you don't want to go defending, Sharpened is nice, Nirnhoned is nice, you know, just, you know, go for these 2 traits if you want to be a little more offensive, I guess. And then, of course, Infuse on the back bar with a weapon damage enchant, just to get some extra spell damage out of it. You know, we always do it like this. And that's basically the gear setup. Let's move on to the skills here. First one is Engulfing Flames. This is your AoE kind of spammable, you know. It's not the cheapest skill, but it works pretty well as a spammable because, you know, it is AoE. It deals a decent amount of upfront damage. It puts a dot on people. You know, people take 10% more damage from your fire attacks, which is pretty decent. So I really like this. This is a pretty good skill, and in combination with this one here, you get the burning embers. You put it on. That's a lot of dot pressure already on people. You know, so I think, you know, it just pairs so well. You can just go back and forth between them, cast them, get your Molten Whip proc up, do this, and just keep the pressure up. And you notice people are struggling. People are struggling hard with, you know, keeping themselves alive when you add a lot of dot pressure. We also have the volatile armor, which adds another layer of dot pressure on top of that. So that goes really, really well. And of course, the burning embers is a really good heal because you can stay offensive if you want and still do some damage and get the heal. You can spam this if you want. You get a decent amount of healing out of this. So I highly recommend using this. A little trick, in case you don't know, if you have multiple targets around you, it doesn't matter if it's like guards or other NPCs or players, put a burning embers on every one of them, because if it runs out or the target dies, you'll get the heal, and this can actually save you. Having multiple burning embers on multiple people can actually really save you. When you take a lot of damage and you might, you know, maybe you can't get to your heal because, you know, you're still on the other bar and you have to, I don't know, maybe you get stuck, you can't swap the weapons or whatever, you're running out of resources, you can't cast the heal. If one of the burning embers runs out or the target dies, you get a massive amount of healing. I got a 21k burning embers heal the other day because I had it on a guard and it was ticking for the entire time. And all of a sudden, I was like almost dead. I was almost dead. I was getting focused by a lot of people. And I basically dropped down to like 500 health. And was like, okay, here we go. And all of a sudden, boom, my health was back up. I got a full health heal from one burning embers that was running out on a guard that I had tagged. So keep that in mind. Put it on everything so you get the heal when the effect runs out. And of course, the next skill is Molten Whip. This is like the bread and butter burst damage skill that we have. You know the drill. You know, 3 Ardent Flame skills, and you get double the damage on the whip, and you get 75 spell damage for every cast. You know, stacking up to 3 times. So that's pretty nice. You wanna keep doing that. You know, since, in case you haven't noticed, we only have Ardent Flame skills on the skills here. You know, every single one of them is an Ardent Flame skill. The reason I did this is I find the idea interesting to always get a buffed whip no matter what you're doing. You know, you can pull somebody, you can put a burning embers on, or like get a heal from it. Put the engulfing flames debuff on, or maybe you cast a cauterize. It all counts towards your Molten Whip. So it allows for a more organic play style, I would say, you know, where you just use your skills in an organic way. You don't have to spam one of them like 3 times in a row. You just use them the way you would always use them. And then after 3 skills, you get the buffed Molten Whip, and you just whip somebody for a lot of damage. So that's something that I really, really like. So the next one is the Unrelenting Grip. I usually, when I go for the chains, I pick the other morph. In this case, I did not, because we don't have a CC on this build. And, you know, if you can't live without a CC, feel free to put one on. I personally, I'm okay with this. Because if you pull somebody in, it adds like a mini CC to them. You know, it's not like a, you know, they don't have to break it, but they get CC'd for a second, which kind of helps. You know, it confuses them for a little bit. And usually people tend to go defensive for a second when you hit them with the Unrelenting Grip, you know, because they just realize, oh, you've been pulled. You just, you know, you just lose control over your character for a short amount of time. People usually go a little bit defensive, which, you know, for me, that's enough. If you're not comfortable running like such a mini CC, you know, you can maybe put Fossilize on or something else, whatever you fancy. I'm okay with this. I like this, and you know, I haven't really had any issues with it. One nice thing is you get the Major Expedition buff when you pull somebody, which is super nice. And I do this a lot to stay mobile. So not only if I want to pull somebody, also if I need to get out of a place, I can pull somebody and then jump through them while they're being pulled and get the speed and just basically just swap places. You know, I pull the guy over to where I was and then I keep running to where he was. And, you know, it's a pretty nice little trick to do, because people get confused. They get pulled, they look around, you're not there anymore, you're already somewhere else. And yeah, it's how I like to do that. Then the next skill is, of course, Cauterize, which is your main source of Major Prophecy. As you might know, we usually use Mage Light for this, but since I wanted to do like a full Ardent Flame kit here, I thought Cauterize is nice. And it actually is nice because it's a pretty cheap skill and it gives you a good heal that either like auto procs every 5 seconds, or you can spam it and get the heal that way. So I like this a lot. This feels good. This is a good heal to spam, especially if your heal over time is ticking on you and you put the Cauterize on top of that. That's a good amount of healing. Really like that. So for the ultimate, of course, Ferocious Leap, the Dragon Leap. It is, I mean, what do I have to say about it? It's amazing. It's pretty cheap. It hits hard. It knocks people off. You know, it's good. I like it. So the way you want to play this, of course, is you buff your Molten Whip up by like casting 3 Ardent Flame skills. Pick whatever skill you want here. When your Molten Whip is fully buffed, you want to leap and then follow up with a whip. You know, that's usually how I would like to do that. If the target's further away, you want to pull them in, then leap, and then Molten Whip in case you don't want to go to them. You know, like in a situation where you just want to pull somebody out of a group and you don't want to go into the group. That's what you want to do. You want to pull them in first. You do the leap, and then you do the fully buffed Molten Whip. It's a lot of damage. If you have the time, put some Engulfing Flames on and get the extra damage that way. So yeah, but it's basically like the bread and butter combo that we're doing here. You know, putting the dots on, debuffing the target, pulling him in, whip, and when the leap's ready, we're gonna go for the leap. So let's look at the back bar. We are using Combat Prayer instead of the Dragon Blood. Why are we using this? It's a good question, and I will tell you. This heal is actually like 30% lower than the Dragonknight heal, the Dragon Blood. So it's you know, it's not as good of a heal, but it gives you the minor Berserk, which I like because we're not, you know, I run a lot of Slime Crawl on my builds, which I love. I love the minor Berserk. We're not doing this on this build, so I thought, you know, just use Combat Prayer and get the minor Berserk this way. It's a good way to buff your damage, still have a decent heal, and of course you get the minor physical and spell resistant buff, which just, you know, it helps. We can, if we fully buff up here, if you fully, like, look at this, 28.4, almost 28.5, and 23.3k on the resistances. So that's pretty beefy for a light armor build, not gonna lie. Like I said, this is not a bad heal. It's not as strong as the Dragon Blood, but, you know, we have a lot of healing on this build. And that brings us to this beautiful skill, Rapid Regeneration. I like this a lot. I would actually recommend maybe going for the Radiating because it's 10 seconds. So the heal is not as strong, but the radiating regeneration functions a little better with the Maelstrom resto staff that we have, because you can get more ticks out of it. But if you want a more bursty healing power, this is the morph to go. Depending on if you feel you need the extra heals or you don't need them, I would say maybe choose the other one to get more sustain out of it. But I kind of like this a little better, because I tend to get focused a lot. So extra healing, that's a yes. And then of course the next skill, Fragmented Shield, which is an amazing shield. It's super small. It does nothing for you, but it gives you major mending, and that's the big part of it. 25% extra healing. It is a big deal. It really is. It buffs all your heals, and it's just I love it. And I always spam this shield when I need some stamina, because due to the what's it called, the Helping Hands passive. Yeah, the Helping Hands passive, you cast an Earthen Heart ability, you get like 1k stamina back. So if you're struggling with the stamina, I would suggest spamming the Fragmented Shield. You might want to put like a rapid regen on first, just to make sure that you have a heal ticking, because then spamming the shield actually is a good idea, because you get a little bit of protection from the shield, but you get the major mending at all times when you just spam it, and that just keeps your heals really, really strong. And the next one, of course, is Volatile Armor. This is our main armor buff, and also some extra dot pressure, because it puts a dot on people. The radius is really nice. You can use this to pull Nightblades out of stealth, because you got a 10-meter radius. That's a huge radius. I'm always surprised when I use it how far it reaches. So that's a really, really good one. And of course, there's a little bit of a damage return when somebody hits you while you have this up. They take a little bit of damage. So that just plays into like the defensive portion and the offensive portion of this build. You can stay defensive and have your dots tick in, and when they attack you, they not only take the dot damage that you put on them, but they also get a little bit of like return damage. Just helps with both the offensive and defensive portions of the build. The next one, of course, Molten Armaments. It's just the our spell damage buff. That's basically what it is. You do extra 50% damage with heavy attacks. We're not really heavy attacking that much, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, good skill, like long duration. That's what I like about this one. You don't have to recast it a whole lot. Get a really long duration out of it. You can go for the other morph if you want a longer duration, but I'll take the extra heavy attack damage, because occasionally we're doing like a resto heavy attack, and I don't mind the extra damage. So yeah. And of course, the ultimate on the back bar, Shooting Star. I like this one. It has some issues with the targeting, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it hits people that you didn't even look at, but it's a good skill, decent amount of damage. It hits a lot of people around the target, so if, you can just drop this into a Zerg. It stuns everybody that it hits, which is really nice, and it gives you 12 ultimate per hit, which, if you do it right, you can potentially get a Dragon Leap out of this. You can do a Shooting Star into a Dragon Leap, which is, if you can ever do this, do it. I did it once. It was really nice. So yeah, that's it. That's the skills. Let's look at the champion points here real quick. So in the red tree, 51 Ironclad, 77 Resistant, 43 in Hardy and Elemental Defender, 56 in Quick Recovery. In the green tree, we got 37 in Warlord, 19 in Sprinter, 22 in Mooncav, 56 in Arcanist, and 43 in Tenacity. And then of course, 37 in Tumbling, because this is more like a blocky build, and that's why we have 56 in Shadow Ward. Gives us a nice cheap block. In the blue tree, we got 56 in Elfborn, 56 in Elemental Expert, and 77 in Spell Erosion, and then the rest 81 in Master at Arms, just for some nice burst damage. You can potentially put something in Thaumaturge because we have a decent amount of dots. I personally don't care about the dot pressure. It's already there. I don't need to buff it. But I want my leaps and my fully buffed whips to hit hard. That's why we're going for the burst damage here. And that is actually the build, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you like it. Sorry that we're using six different sets. Some of them are easy to get. Some of them are a little harder to get. Sorry, but this is a really good build. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, hope you like it. I'll leave you with a ton of PvP footage over the next couple of days. We got a lot of BG footage because, you know, open world is not very good. But man, it performs really well in no CP, even though it was never intended to be used in no CP. It's not optimized for no CP, but it works well. It still works well. Defense, sustain, damage, it's all there. I'm really happy with the build. I hope you are too. Give it a shot if you like it. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and look forward to the PvP footage. And I'll be back with another build soon. So take it easy, everybody. See you next time.